ஹலோ ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ். ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சு உங்களெல்லாம் பார்த்து. ஆக்சுவலி ரொம்ப மிஸ் பண்ணுறேன். ஒரு 50ஆவது ரீச் பண்ணுவோமா இன்னைக்கு? 39 so far. பேரு சப்தகிர் கேம்பர். Should I wait for the rest of them? இப்போதைக்கு 43 தான் வந்திருக்கோம். Kindly respond in chat. Should I wait for everybody to join us? வருவாங்களா? ஏதாவது ஐடியா இருக்கா? Are you able to hear me? I really wish I could hear your voices as well. இப்படியே போயிடுமோ எனக்கு தெரியல. ஆகஸ்ட் ஃபர்ஸ்டா இல்லை எப்போ காலேஜ் ஆரம்பிக்க போகுது, when we are going to see each other, இல்லை டேரெக்டாக யூனிவர்சிட்டி எக்ஸாம்ஸ் தான் பார்க்க போகிறோமா எனக்கு தெரியல. 62. இன்னும் ஒரு 2 minutes வெயிட் பண்ணலாமா? ஒரு இப்போ 6:04 ஆகுது. Tell me what is happening in your life. Chatல என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கீங்க? எனக்கு உங்களோட மீம்ஸ் அண்ட் அந்த poetry அண்ட் ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்துச்சு. அந்த வீடியோஸ் எல்லாமே ரொம்ப 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 நல்லா இருந்துச்சு. ஆக்சுவலி மேடம்கிட்ட இன்னைக்கு காமிக்கணும்னு நினைச்சேன், டைம் இல்லை. Shakti and Suresh, please tell me. Oh, 60 ஆயிடுச்சு மறுபடி. ரெண்டு பேர் ஓடி போயிட்டாங்களா? 64. Anatomy. தாண்டவ் is happening. ஏண்டா எங்களை தாண்டவம்னு சொல்லிட்ட நீ? Solomon, what do you mean by anatomy தாண்டவ்? ரொம்ப வேகமா போறோமா போர்ஷன்ஸ்? ஆக்சுவலி ஒரு நாள் விட்டு ஒரு நாள் ரொம்ப ஸ்லோவா போறதா நினைச்சிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். மக்களே, ஃபயர் ஆன் ஸ்டடீஸ். ஆமா, பத்தி எரியுதாமா. நாங்க மட்டுமா நியூரோ anatomy கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணோம்? பிசியாலஜி தானே நியூரோ பிசியாலஜி கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணாங்க. We were discussing today. um, I understand very huge portions. Okay, நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் சொல்லிடுறேன். ஹெச்ஓடி மேடம்கிட்ட இன்னைக்கு பேசிட்டு இருந்தோம். We expect you to come back somewhere in the middle July or as any other college August. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி வந்தீங்கன்னா சம்வேர் இன் அக்டோபர் உங்களோட யூனிவர்சிட்டி எக்ஸாம்ஸ் இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு எதிர்பார்க்குறோம். This is totally me and HOD madam. No indication whatsoever from the university or MCI. ஸோ என்ன நடக்க போகுது எங்களுக்கு தெரியாது. We request you to keep pace with us. ஏதாவது டிஃபிகல்ட்டி இருந்ததுன்னா கொஞ்சம் ஓப்பன், அதாவது எக்ஸப்ட் தட் வெரி ஹியூஜ் போர்ஷன்ஸ், ரொம்ப பெரிய பெரிய போர்ஷன்ஸ் மேடம் அப்படிங்கிறத மட்டும் சொல்லாம வேற என்ன ப்ராக்டிக்கல் டிஃபிகல்ட்டி, உங்களுக்கு நெட்டு பத்த மாட்டேங்குதா, இல்ல ஆக்சஸ் பண்ண முடியலையா, இல்ல யூ ப்ளீஸ் ஸ்டேட் டு அஸ் வாட் இஸ் ஹேப்பனிங். Maybe we will try to help you. We will talk to the other departments. We will create a timetable. அதை நான் ட்ரை பண்ணுறேன். ஸோ தட் இஸ் த பெஸ்ட் ஐ கேன் டூ ஃபார் யூ. பட் தயவு செய்து படிங்க, டைம் வேஸ்ட் பண்ணாதீங்க. இது வந்து ரொம்ப ப்ரெஷியஸ் டைம், திரும்பி கிடைக்காது. அண்ட் யூனிவர்சிட்டியில் மார்க் கம்மியானாலும் சரி, இல்லை வைவால எக்ஸாமினர் கேட்குற கேள்விக்கு உங்களால் பதில் சொல்ல முடியலனாலும் சரி, அவங்க கேட்க போகிற ஒரே கேள்வி 3-4 மாதம் வீட்டில் தானே உட்காந்துருந்த, என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருந்த அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கேட்பாங்க. ஸோ அதுக்கு இடம் கொடுக்காதீங்க, கண்டிப்பாக படிங்க. டபுளாக கேட்குதா? ஏன்? நான் ஆக்சுவலி என்னோட இதை ஆஃப் பண்ணி தான் வச்சுருக்கேன். நான் பேசுறது எனக்கு கேட்கவே இல்லை. அன்ஏபிள் டு ஹியர் மேம். 2 பேர் அந்த மாதிரி சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. மிச்சவங்களுக்கும் அப்படிதான் இருக்கா? டபுளா கேக்குதா? பாவனா அண்ட் அபிநயா, ப்ளீஸ் வேற ஹெட்ஃபோன், ஒரு இயர்ஃபோன்ஸ் ஏதாவது போட்டுக்கோங்க. பிகாஸ் மிச்சவங்க எல்லாருமே கிளியரா இருக்குன்னு தான் சொல்றாங்க. Okay, we are 78 now, so I think we can start. So my topic for today is muscles of facial expression. ரொம்ப ஜாஸ்தி ஃபேஷியல் எக்ஸ்பிரஷன்ஸ் காமிக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு ஃபேக்கல்ட்டிக்கு இந்த டாப்பிக்கை கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. Okay, let us go into the details of it. Before I get to that, I would like to say that I went through all the question papers for the past 20 years. Like I started somewhere in 2008. I'm sorry, 20 years, 11, 12 years. Orbicularis oculi, only one muscle that we are going to see today was asked only once. So this here, the topic today is of utmost importance to the um, plastic surgeons. I accept that, but you should know this is a very core topic, so we can never say it cannot be asked as a question. So today's class, again as usual, my class, it's going to be for only maximum of 20 to 30 minutes. Just stay with me. We will be discussing only 3 main muscles. The others are for you to read exactly that word, read, because I don't expect you to study them. These 3 muscles, get familiarized with them because they might be asked in the spotters exam, but very 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 rarely any portion of today was asked in the theory paper. Now, so the contents of today's class will be introduction, classification of the facial muscles, description of these three main muscles, the orbicularis oculi, the orbicularis oris, and the buccinator muscle. And then we have the applied anatomy. Okay. Now, what is human face? You know, sorry, not what is human face. Where does the human face start from? The human face starts from the adolescent hairline. Mind you, the word is adolescent hairline. When you are in adolescence, the hairline is at a particular position which keeps receding over time. Men, they recede more faster than the women. So the adolescent hairline separates the scalp from the face. So the upper border will be the adolescent hairline, the posterior most structures will be the auricle, and the inferior most part will be the lower border of the mandible. So that is what we describe as face. And in our face, we have many openings. We have two eye or the orbit, and we have one nasal cavity, one oral cavity, and two ear or the external acoustic meatus. So there are muscles that are going to control these openings. So they are the muscles that are going to form the muscles of facial expression. So why call them muscles of facial expression? In our face, we have three groups of muscles, mainly the muscles of mastication. This is mastication, you know, it is chewing. So those muscles that are going to move the temporomandibular joint. I repeat, the temporomandibular joint are called as the muscles of mastication. Next, we have the extraocular muscles. This we have already, I have already introduced. These are the muscles that are going to move the eyeball. They are located inside the orbit. And then we have the muscles of facial expression. So since we have these three sector of muscles, these three group of muscles in our face, we can only classify the muscles that we are going to talk about under this heading, the facial expression, because these muscle, they insert into the skin. Please remember, anywhere else in our body, when we talk about origin and insertion, we talk about two bony structures. So this bone, I mean the proximal bone and the distal bone will all, and the muscle will always cross a joint. So the origin is fixed, the insertion moves. So when the muscle moves, the joint moves. So that is what happens elsewhere. But here in the face, the muscles are inserted into the skin. Though they might take origin from a ligament, from bone, from so many structures, they always get inserted into the skin. Hence, they move the skin of the face and they bring about many expressions of our face, like smiling, frowning, anger, everything. You would have seen all those expressions on my face at least. So what are the muscles of mastication? The muscles of mastication are the muscles which took their origin from the first pharyngeal arch. When we saw about the cranial nerve nuclei, we discussed about some structures which arise from the visceral part of the skeletal muscle. So that will be the mandibular arch, the first arch. So this mandibular arch gives rise to the muscles of facial expression. So they will be supplied by the one and only part of the trigeminal nerve, that is motor in nature, the mandibular nerve. The muscles of facial expression, they take their origin from the second pharyngeal arch. So they will be supplied by the facial nerve. Hence the nerve is termed as facial nerve, because it is going to supply the muscles of the face. Now, before we go into the description of the muscles, I would like to talk about the morphological origin of this muscle. The elsewhere in our body we have skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, and then the muscles. But in our face, the deep fascia is missing. Can you tell me anywhere else in our body that you have already studied and a muscle occupies on the superficial fascia, not on the deep fascia, but on the superficial fascia? Kindly answer in the chat. Elsewhere in our body, Some are saying abdomen region. Okay. I have one correct answer, but I'm expecting more correct answers. Abdomen, 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 abdomen. Which abdomen muscle are you talking about? On the superficial fascia. Remember students, abdomen mattum neenga answer panna mudiyadhu because we have fascia scarpa and fascia posterior abdominal wall. Makkale, Muhammad Aliyar, you're right. Yes, it is the dartos muscle. The dartos muscle. Where did we see the dartos muscle? Where did we see the dartos muscle? Which organ or which part of the body? Excellent. Yes. Two people have answered the correct answer. Pelvisa. Adey, Dinesh Kumara. டேய் உதைக்க போறேன் பெல்விஸ்னு எழுதினீங்கன்னா. Yes, the answer is scrotum. So you have seen the muscle, so you know what it is. Um, so this group of facial muscles of facial expression are very, very, very similar to dartos muscle. They all are derived from one muscle which is seen in the lower animals, that is the mammals. Okay, anybody who can tell me the name of that muscle from which these muscles arose? Dartos is a derivative of which muscle that is seen in the lower animals, and we don't have it anymore, we only have remnants of it. Okay, scrotum na இன்னும் ஆன்சர் வந்துட்டு இருக்கு. Yes, it is a superficial muscle, but it has a name. Okay. All of you would have seen a cow. Okay. Pyramidalis. Illama. Pyramidalis is also a remnant, but still. Okay. We don't have the muscle na solra. Pyramidalis might or might not be present. Makale, please remember, pyramidalis might or might not be present. But the muscle that I'm saying, we don't have it. Yes, Bharati Kumaran. Good. Panniculus carnosus. The muscle is called as panniculus carnosus. When a fly goes and sits on a cow, the cow cannot shake its hand or rub it off from its surface. So what does it do? It moves only the skin. There'll be some vibrations seen on the skin. So that is produced by a muscle called as panniculus carnosus. So this muscle is placed just beneath the skin and it gets attached to the skin. So when the muscle moves, it moves the skin. So the vibrations are produced on the skin, the fly escapes. So that is panniculus carnosus muscle. The muscle that we have in similarity to the panniculus carnosus muscle, you have already stated one, the dartos. Next we have the muscles of facial expression. So these are the muscles of facial expression. So remember, they are always going to be inserted into the skin. Okay. Now, how are these muscles arranged? Functionally, they are arranged around the orifices that we have on the face. First, to begin with, we have the auricle or the external acoustic meatus. So the external acoustic meatus on all sides are protected by the auricularis anterior, auricularis superior and auricularis posterior. They are very, very, very thin muscles, very difficult to dissect. Then on the forehead, which is a common part of the scalp and the face, we have the frontalis muscle, a part of the occipito frontalis muscle. This muscle creates the wrinkles on the forehead. Then we have the corrugator supercilii. Supercilii is because it occupies the region of the eyebrow, so it is called as the corrugator supercilii. When this muscle contracts, we have that thinking position along with the procerus muscle seen on the bridge of the nose. So this is procerus muscle. So we have the corrugator supercilii, the procerus muscle, and next we have the nasalis. Around the eye, we have very important muscle, the orbicularis oculi. The orbicularis oculi has many parts. We will go into the details of it later. Then we have the nasal part, the orifice that is totally not under our control, but we can do something about it. That is, we can make the alar cartilage go up and down. So நம்ம the மூக்கு வெடைக்கிறது அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. So that happens when we try to expand this region, but we can never close this region as we can do our eye and our mouth, because if we do that unconsciously, we might die because of loss of breathing. So this has to stay patent always. There is one interesting muscle here, the quadratus labiae superioris muscle, or levator labii superior alacui nasi, supposed to be the biggest name of anatomy. So this is actually it lifts the upper lip. So levator superioris labis. Labis means lip, and alacui means wings. So it looks like a wing on either side of the nasal cavity. So that is this muscle. Next, we have the zygomaticus major and the zygomaticus minor muscle, very thin muscles. Again, they take their origin from the zygomatic bone and gets inserted around the orbicularis oris muscle. Next, we have the rhizorius. Then we have the muscles that are going to depress the angle of the mouth. So these are the depressor group of muscle. So these are the various groups of muscle that you can see on the face. They are the muscles of facial expression. Amongst these muscles, that the important ones are the orbicularis oculi, orbicularis oris, and buccinator muscle. So this muscle here is the buccinator muscle. These three muscles have been asked once or twice, and please remember, all these muscle gets inserted into a fibrous knot on either side of the angle of the mouth. So there will be a fibrous knot somewhere in this region where all the muscle either gets inserted or take its origin from. That is called as modiolus, modiolus. So modiolus is present lateral to the angle of the mouth, and that is in this region. So these muscles either gets inserted into it or take its origin from it. Now, so these things we have already discussed. Now coming to the orbicularis oculi muscle, typically it has three parts. There is an orbital part, a palpebral part, and a lacrimal part. Okay, so we have an orbital part, a palpebral part, and a lacrimal part. Please repeat. We have orbital, palpebral, and lacrimal part. So this was the question that is usually that was asked in the 2-mark question. This might be asked in a MCQ question. So you have MCQ. Please remember that that is your boon and curse. It's both, because if you are able to solve it, it is like laddu. You will get the full mark. Unlike the other questions where we can give half mark, 1 mark, all the stuff. But in MCQ, it's all or none law. So you can either get the mark or not get the mark. So please remember, there are only 3 parts in the orbicularis oculi: orbital, palpebral, and lacrimal. Here in this picture, we are able to appreciate the first 2 parts, the orbital and the palpebral. This is the medial palpebral ligament that goes across the lacrimal sac. So this here we have the lacrimal sac. If you remember, whenever you cry or yawn, you can feel tears coming out of your eye and water coming out of your nose. This happens simultaneously, because when you yawn, what happens? You close the eye for a longer period of time, the lacrimal glands secretes a lot, so that fluid comes out, the tear comes out as tear itself from the eye, and it gets collected in the lacrimal sac in the medial part of the orbit, and that lacrimal sac is connected to the inferior concha in the nasal cavity. So there is a passage between the nasal cavity and the orbit that is guarded by this medial palpebral ligament. So the muscle, the orbital part of the muscle takes origin from the medial part of the medial palpebral ligament, goes around the orbit. It does not get inserted in anywhere and comes back to its original position, the medial part of the medial palpebral ligament. So that is the orbital part, starting from the medial end of the medial palpebral ligament, goes around the eyeball or the orbital or the opening of the orbit and gets inserted into the same part. Next part, the palpebral part. Palpebral means eyelid. Palpebral means eyelid. So what happens here? This muscle takes its origin from the lateral end of the medial palpebral ligament and gets inserted into the lateral palpebral ligament or raphe. They mean the same. Ligament and raphe means the same. So this takes its origin from the lateral end of the medial palpebral ligament and goes to the lateral palpebral ligament or lateral palpebral raphe. Now the orbital part of the orbicularis oculi closes shut your eye like this, what I'm doing now. So this happens when you want to protect your eye from any dust or some even your friend hitting you, something like that. So that is the orbital part. The palpebral part is responsible for blinking. It is responsible for closing the eye when we sleep, similar things like that. So that is the function of the palpebral part. Coming to the next part, that is the lacrimal part of the orbicularis oculi muscle, this region here. So this is the lacrimal part of the orbicularis oculi muscle. This keeps the lacrimal sac open. The function of this part of the orbicularis oculi keeps the lacrimal sac open. So these are the three parts of the muscle: orbital part, palpebral part, and the lacrimal part of the orbicularis oculi muscle. Now, next part we are going to discuss about the muscles around the mouth or the oral cavity. So this here is the lip. This is the there will be sphincters and relaxants. Okay. So the orbicularis oris muscle, which runs around the oral cavity or the opening of the mouth, is a sphincter. So it closes shut the lips. Okay, so that is orbicularis oculi muscle. It has two strata, a deep strata and a superficial strata. uh, okay, that is enough about that muscle. I don't think you should know the origin and insertion for that. Coming to the buccinator, this has been asked a few times in our internal, very very frequently asked in the spotter exam. So what is buccinator where does it takes its origin from? It again has three parts: a superficial part, a middle part, and an superior part, middle part, and an inferior part. The superior part takes its origin above the molar bone. Okay, molar tooth. So the first molar, second molar, and the third molar are the last three teeth. So they take its origin above that. Okay, so that is the superior part. It goes and directly inserts itself into the upper lip. The inferior part also takes its origin closer to the molar tooth on the mandible, and it goes and directly inserts into the lower part of the lip. The middle part, which takes its origin from the pterygomandibular raphe. Okay, so there is a ligament which attaches the pterygoid bone to the mandible. So that is called as the pterygomandibular raphe. The middle part takes its origin from there and decussates around the corner of the mouth. So one part goes to the upper lip and one part goes to the lower lip. So this region here is the modiolus that I was talking about. It is a fibrous knot. When this knot becomes very hard, when we try to smile, a dimple is formed. So that the modiolus is the reason for that. So if you want to artificially create a dimple, what you do is you remove the fat above the modiolus from between the skin and the modiolus, so that the skin gets attached to the modiolus. Whenever you smile, a dimple is formed. So these are the aesthetic points. Now what is the function of buccinator? it it is called as a whistling muscle, but we don't whistle always. The primary function of buccinator is to clear the vestibule between the teeth and the cheek. Okay, there is a space up on the lateral side of the teeth and between the mouth, the cheek. So that region, the food gets accumulated here. Okay, so the buccinator, the function of the buccinator is to close the cheek against the bone so that the food is pushed back into the oral cavity for mastication and swallowing. So that is the function of buccinator muscle. Basically என்னன்னா ஆட்டுக்கல்ல ஆட்டும் போது கையால தள்ளி விடுவாங்க தெரியுமா, கிட்டத்தட்ட அந்த வேலை தான் இந்த பக்சினேட்டருக்கு. Buccinator muscle is pierced by the duct of the parotid gland, which is called as the Stenson's duct. Okay, this is a very, 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 very important detail about the buccinator muscle. Why I am saying this is very important is because parotid duct is usually tied in a spotter exam, and the structures pierced by it will be the next question. Okay, so one among them will be the buccinator muscle, remember that. So this buccinator muscle is responsible for not I mean is responsible for not allowing the food to enter into the Stenson's duct. Okay, so also the Stenson's duct is very the second commonest where a calculi can be formed. The first commonest is the submandibular gland. The duct of the submandibular gland has to go against gravity. So you can expect pooling of saliva inside the submandibular gland leading to formation of calculus. But the next one will be, we will think the sublingual being the fatty or the mucus secretion will be the commonest, but it is actually the submandibular. The next commonest is the parotid, though it is purely a serous type of secretion. It is because of the action of the buccinator. So when we keep blowing our mouth, so that leads to the closure of the Stenson's duct, and that leads to calculus formation. So these are the important features that you should know about buccinator muscle. Coming to the nerve supply, we already know the branches of the facial nerve is going to supply the facial muscles of facial expression. So what are the branches of facial nerve? Facial nerve will, the last part, the terminal part of the facial nerve, the cranial facial nerve, will pass through the parotid gland and then divide it into its terminal branches, namely the temporal branch, the zygomatical branch, the buccal branches. So there will be an upper buccal branch and a lower buccal branch. Then we have the marginal mandibular branches and the cervical branches. So these are the branches that are going to supply the muscles of facial expression. This will be dealt in detail tomorrow. So I have discussed the applied anatomy. Apart from that, Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy is there, and all these muscles will also be affected by Bell's palsy, and that is your assignment. Okay, I will put up a Google form in a few minutes, and you will write about Bell's palsy in your own handwriting. Okay, I don't want a typed document. You're going to write about Bell's palsy, the muscles affected by the Bell's palsy, and the reason behind it. You're going to go search in the net and write in your own hand with your roll number and name, and you will submit to the Google form that I will be putting up in a very few minutes. And I expect this assignment to be done before the end of coming Saturday. So that will be 9th. Okay, so 9th evening 9th evening 9 p.m. is the cutoff time for this assignment and your attendance for today and tomorrow. Remember, we are doing only 3 classes per week, so I am accountable for today and tomorrow. Thank you, students. I hope you understood what I tried to express in this class. I expect to see a few answers. Any doubts? Okay, the link will be in the Google class, sorry, in my channel for the next 3 days, and then they take it off. Um, as I said, this is a very, very small class, so not much to be discussed. Mm, anything else? Personal message me. Okay, shall we say bye? Missing you all a lot. Without your face, just talking to a laptop, really bugging. Come back soon. Bye, students. Love you all.